Welcome, good people, to the Speaking for Profit graduation. I'm Evolve Benton, the Speaking for Profit strategist and the founder of this amazing company. If you can hear me, put hashtag live in the comments. If you're watching in the near and dear future, put hashtag replay. And I would love to know where y'all watching from, because we know we have folks watching from around the world, which is always amazing. We get to use this amazing platform called YouTube. Today, we are celebrating the spring 2026 graduates of Speaking for Profit Academy. I've had the pleasure of working with these folks for the last 12 weeks on building out the structure of their speaking business, but also building out what we call a signature talk. And a signature talk, y'all, is that one talk that you're going to use to share around the world. And I always say, we always want to think about Auntie Beyonce. Auntie Beyonce comes out with one album a year, sometimes every 3 years. We don't know when we're going to get it. It might be dropping right now. If it is, please don't go listen to Beyonce. Stay here, stay with us. But she drops an amazing album, and she will go to London, Atlanta, San Francisco, and she is going to perform that album. Now, the outfits might change. You might get Jay-Z, you might get a little bit of Blue Ivy, but the essence is going to be the same. And that's what our signature talks are. And our amazing clients are going to share them with you today. So I'm looking forward to this. Speaking for Profit has been around since 2020, believe it or not. So we are celebrating 6 years of greatness. And we've helped hundreds of speakers from around the world establish their speaking business and be able to create an impact in the world. Because one thing that I believe is that words and speeches can change the world. It can change the economy. It can change the way we vote, the way we love, and the way that we celebrate each other. So I'm going to bring up someone amazing, which is our senior client success coach, BX Barclay, to the space to come through. And BX actually is an amazing speaker, a financial coach, and was a graduate of Speaking for Profit Academy, our very first cohort. So they were part of the beta bays. That's what we called them back in the day. And they continue to support Speaking for Profit University clients to this day. So I will bring BX to the stage. What's up, BX? Welcome to the space.
What's up, Evolve? What's up, everyone in the world? Glad to see you all here and excited to celebrate our cohort members.
I am too. Where are you calling in from? Where are you at?
Yeah, so changing it up a little bit, I am out in Visalia, California. So switching it up from my normal location of Ventura.
Okay, nice, y'all. And I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. For folks who don't know it, a lot of folks still think I'm in Los Angeles because I can't lose the accent. I don't know about you, BX. Once you're from California, it's always in you, right?
Yep, always with you.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to give it over to you so we can get started. But thank you so much, BX, for all that you do for our clients, for our students, and just being an amazing person in general. I appreciate you, fam.
Yes, thank you so much, Evolve. Appreciate you as well. I'm so excited to be here and to bring up our first speaker for our graduation. We have Nisha Mahdi, who's going to be coming to the stage. Nisha is a trauma-informed coach, someone who does a lot of great work within the Los Angeles area, and Nisha is going to be sharing her signatures talk with us. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Nisha to come up to the stage. After Nisha finishes her signature talk, we will have a short interview with her just to hear about her experience in the program. So now I'd like to welcome to the stage, Nisha Mahdi.
Thank you so much, BX. I'm so excited to share today. So I'd love to know, for you to think to yourself, have you ever heard of the phrase, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? When I first heard that phrase, my mind was blown. It captured something I had witnessed across every environment I've worked in. That includes small businesses, mid-sized companies, large corporations, healthcare, K through 12, higher education. No matter the industry or the budget, no matter what the quote unquote mission statement or strategic plan was, culture was always the thing that made or broke everything else. Ultimately, at the center of culture, at the heart of it, is how we relate to each other through communication. And yes, this might mean formal communication that's sent out, but there's informal communication too. What you say when you go into your colleague's office, what's on Slack, what happens during or after a meeting. Basically, the kind that either builds trust or erodes it. And trauma-informed care itself is about cultivating trustworthiness, period. So creating a truly supportive culture means communicating in a way that invites transparency and predictability and really builds that trust. And most of us, myself included, have not been taught how to do that. We didn't learn relationship skills in high school. Instead, we learned things like calculus that we don't use anymore. These are essential relationship skills that were not taught to us. And a big problem that I see is that we spend so much energy focusing on, quote unquote, the right thing to say, so we don't hurt someone's feelings. And when we do that, we end up avoiding exactly what needs to be said. We've confused being polite with being honest. We've confused silence for safety. And when we do that, conflicts or even minor instances that build up over time never get resolved. And that is the genesis of the quiet erosion of trust that I'm talking about. Most of the time, it isn't some big bang. It's a slow decay. And sure, some teams might seem to function on the surface, but something underneath is slowly brewing and breaking. So here's the shift I want to take us on today. We need to stop judging behavior and start asking more questions. We need to stop ignoring our bodies and start noticing how we're responding, so we stop projecting our own survival responses unintentionally onto the people around us. And we need to stop avoiding hard conversations and start sitting with our discomfort so we can communicate with integrity. Sitting with discomfort and pain is so important. We often think, if it doesn't feel good, I don't want to do it. I shouldn't do it. Instead of actually looking at discomfort as a growth opportunity. Ultimately, silence or skirting around an issue or not giving consequences, that's really expensive. I'm a certified life coach and certified speech language pathologist with over 20 years of work experience. And in the last 5 years specifically, I've focused on helping people communicate with honesty and break those cycles of recurring conflict that show up in relationships, on teams, and within organizations. So I've sat in the rooms and I've seen what unaddressed tension looks like in a hospital, in a school, in a corporate boardroom. And I can tell you that the cost is real. Organizational culture makes or breaks employee satisfaction. High turnover is very expensive, not just financially, but reputationally. There's a cost for time spent as well. There's no hiding that we are right now in a moment where workers are beyond exhausted. They fear budget cuts. They fear being replaced by AI. And then they receive unclear communication from leadership when these changes happen. So they're operating under conditions of ongoing uncertainty, and uncertainty is so incredibly hard. It breeds fear, anxiety, and ultimately burnout. We're living in this post-COVID world, layered on top of deep precarity and deep inequality. People are not coming to work as blank slates. They're carrying a lot from their lives and generations before, understandably. And when organizations don't respond to that very human need for connection and clarity, they pay for it. They pay for it in disengagement. They pay for it in attrition, in the erosion of everything that their mission statement supposedly promised. The fact is that trust is hard to rebuild once it's been broken. But when you address conflict proactively, when you take accountability before things spiral out, you actually save time, you save relationships, and you save and even promote the very culture you're trying to build. The longer you wait, the more your organization suffers, and that suffering doesn't just disappear when people leave. It becomes part of the legacy, and that legacy toxicity, a phrase coined by Katrina Davis Kendrick and Wendy Holliday, both library workers, shapes the next generation of workers that come through your doors. So needless to say, now is the time to make this shift. So before I actually get into what you should do to make this shift, I want to tell you a story. Because everything I just said, I had to learn the hard way over years. So early last year, I had a conflict with my brother. He flew in for my mom's birthday, and the three of us spent the weekend together. One evening after dinner, he said something and did something that he's done before. He spoke on my behalf about something that wasn't true and that I had never consented to. I had told him multiple times before that I didn't like when he did this, but this time was my tipping point. I told him to stop, and I looked at him with the sharpest glare I could manage, and I demanded to know why he would do that. It wasn't exactly trauma-informed communication on my part, but it was where I was at after a lifetime of this sibling relationship, which I'm sure so many of you can relate to. Honestly, you probably could have seen the steam coming out from my ears if you were there. He did apologize, and I really appreciated that, but the deep anger was still bubbling in my body. And then I did what I always do when I'm too activated to think clearly. I started spinning those stories in my head, making up narratives about who he was and what he meant by what he did, and that none of it was fair. It was all fueled by rage and assumptions. I knew I needed to journal, something that's helped me a lot. I wasn't sure if it would help beyond just venting, but connecting to my body through writing hasn't failed me yet. So the next morning, I wrote furiously, pages of my anger and confusion. And then I wrote 5 letters that I always write when my activation is high. GGIMB. That's GGIMB, and it stands for Gonna Get in My Body. I knew that continuing to write about this was helpful, but there's a point where I was just adding fuel to the fire. So I stopped and I asked myself, where is this anger living in my body right now? And I allowed myself to feel it. It was a fire red, sitting and bubbling in my chest. And I closed my eyes and I repeated to it, you are allowed to be here. You are allowed to be here. Something that I actually guide my clients through all the time when their feelings are really strong and triggering and activating. And something shifted. When I gave that anger permission to exist, when I stopped fighting it, it softened. It actually moved from anger to sadness. Sadness for both my brother and I. Sadness that my boundary had been crossed. Sadness that I hadn't felt like I had agency to speak for myself. And in my journal, I wrote, I am hurt that you feel the need to speak for me. And then I wrote, my aligned action and my need is to tell him how I feel. Less than an hour later, we were on a walk and I told him. Being that vulnerable with him was new for me. In the past, I'd kept my walls up and avoided him or snapped at him, and I really let my pain become his punishment, and I didn't want that anymore. So I told him I was angry and that I was hurt, and I genuinely asked him what was going on. And he told me something that I hadn't expected. He said that what he had said to my mom at dinner was because he was triggered by something that my mom had said. And he assumed that it triggered me too. He'd felt the need to defend not just himself, but also me. I personally hadn't registered it as triggering. It didn't bother me at all. But when he explained it, it completely made sense. He was activated. And he didn't have the space in that moment to check in with me first. And as my older brother, he wanted to protect me. I told him that I understood. And I just asked that next time he check in with me first. And he agreed. Everything in me after this conversation softened. I had so much compassion for both of us. That is the power of trauma-informed communication. But that conversation, that repair never would have happened if I didn't have the 3 practices I'm about to share with you right now. So I'm going to share these 3 practices and briefly summarize them for you. The first one is to cultivate psychological safety, starting with yourself. This means understanding your own nervous system responses. When you feel threatened or shut down or frozen or reactive like I did, that's your body doing what bodies do best, to feel safe and to survive. The key is learning to recognize it. In the story with my brother, I created safety through journaling and connecting with my body. Cultivating this safety also means remembering that the person across from you has a nervous system too. You might think, oh, they're just being difficult, and they might be being difficult. But there's also something deeper happening. They might be activated. That shift in this perspective changes everything for you. Now, I always like to say that it isn't your responsibility to care for someone else's nervous system, but regarding that they have one, it can still shift how you respond. So practice 2 is identifying your feelings and unmet needs. Most conflict isn't really about the thing on the surface. It's about something underneath, feeling frustrated or alone or angry, and then knowing that you have a need for respect or for compassion, for clarity, for belonging. And when you can really get honest with yourself about what you're actually feeling and what you actually need, you can have more honest conversations and you can start addressing your needs themselves. This one activity can make you aware about what's coming up for you in real time. And as you may remember, it was essential in my situation with my brother. I identified my anger and the need to share my feelings with him to get clarity. This is another tool for you to stop reacting and start responding, even just to yourself. And at the end of this, you'll get a QR code where I'll ask for your feedback. And when you fill it out, you'll get a document with a list of feelings and needs for you to use personally. And the third practice I have is to lean into curiosity over judgment. Instead of making assumptions about why someone did what they did, ask, get genuinely curious. Ask clarifying questions to understand and confirm. This isn't an interrogation, it's actual real curiosity. And you'll be surprised at how often the story you've been telling yourself doesn't match reality, just like the stories I made with my brother. But remember, it's important to address practice 1 and 2 before you do this, so you aren't performing curiosity. It's actually genuine. So back to culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As you heard, it literally almost ate my dinner with my mom and my brother too. So that's exactly what I mean. Culture isn't something that lives only in your employee handbook or is in your all hands meeting. It lives in how you respond when you're activated, how you take care of your feelings and needs, whether you get curious or make assumptions, whether you could sit with the discomfort long enough to tell the truth, not just to others, but to yourself. And here's what I really need you to know. Repair is actually possible. Connection is possible. Even after years of the same patterns repeating, something can shift. Not because it's easy, but because you are willing to do something differently. So today, just today, pick one of those 3 practices, just one. Notice your nervous system, name a feeling, ask a question instead of making an assumption. That's how you start building a culture that doesn't just survive, but one that people actually want to be a part of. Thank you so much. There's my code for you to do the survey and get that feelings and needs document.
Awesome job, Nisha. Go ahead and drop some loves and some fires in the chat for Nisha. That was an amazing signature talk. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful message with us. There are a few takeaways that I just want to highlight for folks. So one, I think being mindful of the cultures that we're creating around us, right? Are we creating cultures that folks actually want to be a part of and they're excited to join? Really love that acronym of the GGIMB. So gonna get in my body. So using that to really get more connectedness back to ourselves, and then just being mindful of taking care of our nervous system, but also being mindful of the nervous systems of other folks who are around us. So thank you so much, Nisha, for that signature talk. Now I would love to interview you just to learn a little bit more about you and your time in the program. So my first question is, how did you get started in speaking?
That's a great question. I actually really started doing speaking in high school. I was on the speech team and I did impromptu, which was a topic where they give you a topic or a quote or anything, and then you have like, I don't know, 3 minutes or like a really short time to create a speech and then you give it. So that really put me, like the pressure, like got really exciting for me. And I just was like, let me just make a speech. And I did really well in that. And that's where I really was able to increase my confidence. And then after that, I just done various speaking events, and really doing it professionally started about 5-6 years ago when I started talking more about trauma-informed care. I started teaching about it. And previously I had done like different speeches and whatnot. And I also did a lot of instruction when I was a librarian. So I was always comfortable speaking and being on a stage, but it became more professional the last 4 or 5 years when I started more professionally speaking and doing keynotes.
I love that. That's awesome. Which leads me to my next question. What made you decide to join the Speaking for Profit cohort? And what has your experience been like?
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to join the cohort is because I was just kind of managing my, I mean, if you want to call them systems, like to reach out to people, just like in my email, trying to remember in my head, like who did I talk to? And it really just wasn't systematized. And I didn't really have community around my speaking. I'm also a coach and I have a lot of community around coaching, but for the speaking part of it, I didn't. So part of it was, I was excited that it was a group and I would be able to learn from other people and just connect with them and commiserate in our own ways. And also just create a better system for reaching out to people, tracking, the different people I want to invite and just, get to know to see if have any need, whether that's just planting a seed or just starting to get things out there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it sounds like getting more of that structure, right, to really get to that next level within your business.
Absolutely.
That's really awesome to hear. So the next question is, what's the biggest shift or result you've experienced since joining the program? I think you kind of alluded to this a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest shift is that I have been like more actively just pitching on a weekly basis, not just responding or thinking like, oh, who can I just have a conversation with, right? That the other day I was actually at dinner with my partner and his boss, who he's friends with, and I was like, and he works in higher education. I was like, hey, like how do things work there? Because she's also the chair of the department. So she had more access and knowledge than my partner did. And just being like, oh, like maybe I can email you. And it was very casual and natural, but just even like little interactions like that, realizing like, oh, I can just ask about this. And it doesn't mean that I'm being salesy. It's part of my system. And it's really deeply rooted in the values I have and the reason I'm speaking in the first place.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And really using those different connections and taking advantage of the opportunities as they arise. So kudos to you. And then our last question is, what's next for you and how can folks stay connected to you or work with you in the future?
Sure. So trauma-informed communication strategies is a new framework that I actually created, and you just got like a really small snippet in that 10-minute talk. But I have a whole framework where that I've created, and I've gotten a couple opportunities now to share that framework. But I am really taking on opportunities to do like a 1-hour workshop to teach it to different organizations. And I also really do that in a one-on-one coaching environment too. So, if you did fill out that survey, you'll be asked to, be added to my email list, and you'll hear about different opportunities to connect with me. So that's really what's happening for me next.
Awesome. Awesome. And then are there other ways that folks can stay connected to you? Instagram, I know you have a podcast, any of those
Yeah.
things you would like to plug as well?
Yeah, thank you so much. So as you see in my name here, Healing Hype Girl is my name on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok because I'm also writing a memoir about my divorce where I'm talking more about that on TikTok, but I talk about my coaching and whatnot and the same topics that I bring up today on Healing Hype Girl on Instagram. And I do have a podcast. We're in a break right now, but it's called Earthworm Slumber Party that my co-host Opulence was in this program before. So it's really cool. And we talk about how we talk about like exploring big ideas playfully. So they are an incredible public speaker and a conflict navigator. So we both have these different perspectives, and we call it Earthworm Slumber Party because we're both earth signs. So you have that grounded energy from both of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nisha, for just sharing your magic with us, but also sharing your experience. We really appreciate it. Please, folks, give some more love to Nisha in the chat. We would love to see that coming through. And now we're going to continue to move forward to our next speaker who's going to be coming to the stage. So now I want to invite up Evolve in order to introduce our next speaker, Angela.
Thank you so much, BX. Thank you, Nisha. Nisha, you killed it, y'all. If y'all not getting into these talks, I don't know what y'all are doing. This is a good Saturday. This is an amazing Saturday. If you didn't get an opportunity, please give Nisha some feedback. I will bring her QR code up just for a few more minutes so you can get access to that. This feedback actually goes to Nisha's Talkadot, right? So you will get all the information you need to stay connected. So please click the QR code, put in the code TALK. You're going to get those tools that Nisha mentioned during her talk as well. And this is just a great way to stay connected. You'll be added to her email list. And Nisha, we just appreciate you so much. You're an amazing speaker. And Nisha is an amazing healer, right? And that's the thing that I love about Speaking for Profit. We get the opportunity to work with folks who are healing and doing amazing work. So I have the great opportunity of introducing our next speaker, who is a healer, a mental health provider, doing some amazing work as a therapist, has a podcast herself, and really in this program, to me, has showed up as a professional, secured some opportunities, and been just really honest about her process. And I just appreciate her so much. So I want to introduce Angela Williams to come to the stage and to share this amazing signature talk as we get into it. Welcome, Angela.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. All right, so I'm really excited to share a little bit more about self-leadership. I really think it's a skill we all need, something I work with my clients with in both therapy, coaching, and speaking. So I'd love to start by sharing a story with you all. I'll never forget the day that changed everything for me. I looked at my calendar and there was no white space, not a gap, no space to breathe, just back to back to back appointments. A full week of faces, decisions, and people who needed something from me. I remember staring at the screen, just hoping someone would cancel. Just one moment to catch my breath, but there wasn't one. My chest tightened. I could feel the tension creeping in my shoulders and that slow, dull ache of another migraine coming on. But I didn't change anything. I simply pushed through. I saw every client and held every session. And by the end of the day, I wasn't just exhausted. My body had completely shut down. From the stress, from the overwhelm. I withdrew from everyone, including the people I love, because I just couldn't even function. I remember laying in bed, in the dark, exhausted, disconnected from my husband, and just overwhelmed by the pressure. And what concerned me most was this. From the outside, I still looked high functioning. I was still getting things done, still showing up, still achieving. I even got praise for what looked like success to other people. But internally, I was running on fumes. And I think that's the part we don't talk about enough with high-achieving leaders. Because sometimes burnout doesn't look like falling apart. Sometimes it looks like continuing to perform while quietly disconnecting from yourself. Can anyone relate to that? In that moment, I realized something that changed how I lead and how I live. I was a therapist who specialized in human behavior, and I couldn't even regulate myself. The thing about pressure is that it doesn't care about your credentials, your title, your experience, or how many people are counting on you. When pressure rises, stress increases. And if you haven't built the internal tools to meet it, it runs the show. Through your decisions, your tone, your presence, through everything. Gallup research shows that managers account for at least 70% of the variance in how engaged a team is at work. So that means the pressure you carry doesn't just stay with you, it travels into every meeting, every conversation, to every person on your team. Other studies show that 57% of employees who reported they've quit specifically because of their boss. So that means often people are quitting bad managers, not companies. And yet, most leaders have never been taught how to regulate themselves. We need to stop teaching leaders how to only manage the work and start teaching them how to manage themselves. I've spent over 17 years studying human behavior and working closely with high-achieving leaders, people who are successful, capable, and respected. And yet, behind closed doors, as a licensed therapist, I've seen what happens when the expectations rise and the stakes get higher. Pressure changes people in different ways. Some leaders become controlling, some become avoidant, some over-explain, some shut down emotionally and call it professionalism. Some become reactive. Some people become people pleasers because they're terrified of disappointing anyone. Some abandon themselves due to overwhelm, stress, and the just trying to survive mentality, all while trying to prove that they are worthy. Most of the time, they don't even realize it's happening. What happens behind closed doors rarely stays there. Stress is a way of leaking into the room before we even say a word, into how quickly we respond, how patient we are, and how much safety or tension other people feel around us. Because leadership is deeply relational. Human beings are constantly reading one another emotionally, often subconsciously. And the nervous system of a leader can influence the emotional climate of that entire team. Neuroscience helps explain why this is. Humans are wired for something called emotional mirroring. So our mirror neurons reflect another person's emotions, body language, and energy in order to build rapport and social connection. That means we repeat what we see, and it's not on a conscious level. And our nervous systems are also constantly scanning the environment, asking one question: am I safe? So when a leader walks into a room overwhelmed reactive, or operating in distress, people feel that. They mirror it. It spreads through decisions, through teams, through relationships at work and at home. Gallup reported that global employee engagement fell, costing the world economy $438 billion in lost productivity. And you know the cause? A drop in manager engagement. A meta-analysis of research showed that more than 10,000 employees found that the relationship people have with their direct leader is one of the strongest predictors of whether they stay or start looking for the exit. This isn't just about performance. It's about the ripple effect of how we show up in the moments that matter the most. So I want you to think about the best leader you've ever worked with. Chances are, before you remember what they accomplished, you remember how you felt around them. Maybe you felt safe, calm, capable, seen. That feeling matters more than we realize. We keep teaching leaders how to manage the work, but no one's teaching them how to manage themselves. In my case, I had left a job working for someone else to work for myself, and what surprised me was that changing my environment didn't automatically change my internal state. I still encountered the symptoms of burnout until I started building my own toolkit and practicing the skills daily that helped me return to myself before, during, and after stressful moments. And those skills changed everything. Not because life became pressure-free, that's not realistic, but because I stopped letting the pressure fully take over. These skills matter whether you manage a team, lead in your family or community, or work for yourself. One of the most powerful things a leader can do is learn to regulate themselves and lead with calm, clarity, and intention. So here are 4 tools you can take into your next leadership moment. First, try a tactical pause. So the next time you feel your nervous system spike in a meeting, I want you to place both feet flat on the floor and take one slow, full, deep breath, just a pause before reacting or responding. Even 30 seconds can feel like a lot of time, but it's just enough for that mental reset. That pause is the difference between a reactive leader and a regulated one. Second, decide who you want to be in this moment. So before your next high-stakes conversation, so whether you're in the elevator, in the car, or in that 30 seconds before you walk into the room, take one breath and ask yourself, how do I want to show up right now? Is it calm, compassionate, inspiring? Name it. Then lead with that, because setting the intention before you enter that room changes everything about how you show up inside of it. Third, notice what gets in the way. Start asking yourself, is this an emotion, a thought, a belief that isn't even true? Regulation begins with awareness. So when you can name what's happening inside of you, you stop being controlled by it. You get to choose your response instead. And lastly, build a practice that brings you back to yourself. My practice is going on a walk every morning where I focus on my intention for the day. It's simple, it's non-negotiable, and it's not just about fitness, but it's about arriving at my day regulated and ready. And I'll also add this, have someone that you can talk to, whether it's a therapist, a coach, a mentor, really just someone who can help you process the pressure before it starts running your decisions. Because the world doesn't need more leaders who can simply manage the work. It needs leaders who have learned to manage themselves. I want to take you back to a morning I still think about. I was an undergrad sitting in my mentor's office. Morning light was coming in across the bookshelves, the stacks of papers on her desk. She was the head of the psychology department, running research studies, teaching, supervising, raising a family. I mean, she was by any measure one of the busiest people I knew. And I sat across from her, finally admitting what I didn't want to say out loud, that I was overwhelmed. I was working on my thesis research project, studying the effects of domestic partner violence on children in utero. And honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt lost, behind, embarrassed. And I expected her to respond the way stressed people often do, rush, distracted, impatient. But she simply looked at me, completely steady, completely calm, and just casually said, "Hey, let's just do it now together." There was no panic, no frustration, no making me feel small for not already knowing the answer, just steadiness. And something shifted in my body almost immediately. My shoulders dropped, my breathing slowed, and I could think clearly again. And I didn't just feel supported, I felt safe. I felt capable, I felt regulated because she was. Her calm became mine, and I understood something in that moment that I've carried with me ever since, and it's the way that we show up impacts the nervous systems of the people around us. That day shaped the kind of leader I wanted to become. Not a perfect leader, not someone who never feels pressure, but someone who learns how to return to themselves quickly enough that other people can feel safe, clear, and steady in their presence. And, when I look back at certain seasons of my life, I can honestly admit there were moments when stress inhibited me from being my best, most patient, present self. Moments when I looked calm externally while internally I was already past my capacity. Moments when I answered quickly instead of thoughtfully, when I emotionally withdrew, or when I carried pressure into rooms that deserved more presence. That's hard to admit when your work is helping other people feel safe, but that awareness changed me because self-leadership is not about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about repair. It's about learning how to come back to yourself over and over again. My mentor never knew until recently how much her example shaped me. So I reached out to tell her, and now I'm here passing that ripple to you. Because the most powerful leadership move you can make has nothing to do with your title or your strategy. It happens inside of you. So the next time the pressure rises and the room is watching, pause, take a breath, and ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to show up as today? Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you will give me a little bit of feedback if you have the time. Feel free to scan the QR code, or you can go to talk.ac/Angela Williams. The code is Angela, and not only will you get to give me some feedback, but you'll also get connected to me. I have a lot of wonderful resources that are free to you, including a guided meditation that I love to share with folks, especially as they're learning to regulate themselves. So feel free to contact me there, and you'll also be connected to me via social media.
Angela, you better show out. That was amazing. Thank you so much. What really sat with me was that you're grounding leaders in doing one of the things that my grandmother used to always say, which is like charity starts at home and then spreads abroad.
Yes.
If we're not able to take care of ourselves as leaders, how can we expect to take care of our teams? And I think the work that you're doing is just so powerful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, let's get into this interview because I'm sure folks want to know more about you and
Sure.
your amazing work. So let's start off, like, what got you into public speaking and consulting?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest with you all. I used to hate public speaking. I would sweat, I would freeze, everything that could go wrong when you were public speaking for school, when you had to do assignments. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. So I never thought I would be here, but here I am. So I'm very excited. I actually got used to public speaking when I was in one of my jobs. I worked at a university, and we had to do a lot of education to the university community, to our students, to our families. We would be responsible for sharing a lot of the safety pieces. I worked as a case manager. I also did some crisis work at the school. And so we also expanded a program for students that were experiencing homelessness. And so we would then also go to conferences and share that work for other universities to learn about. So I really started to find my voice and get more excited about sharing messages in that way, and definitely got a little bit more of used to being in front of people and speaking more calmly.
It's nothing like us as higher education professionals, right? Like
Yes.
that will throw you in the fire of having to deal
Immediately.
immediately, right? Like you have to speak to so many different people,
Mhm.
staff, faculty, so many
Yes.
different folks. So that's really cool to hear.
Mhm.
And you started off there, right, in higher
Mhm.
education. You found speaking for profit. You decided to join the cohort. Tell folks like why you decided to join, and then what are some things that you've gotten out of the program?
Yeah. So, um, I, have a private practice. So I do work with clients. I see them one-on-one in a clinical setting. I also kind of moved into the coaching space because I wanted to be able to work with folks in a different way and kind of not really have the restrictions that sometimes a license can put on of, what and where and all of that. But I wanted to be able to help people, who wanted the support. But when I realized that, speaking is something that I'm more passionate about, I was like, you know what? I really haven't had any formal training on how to bring this into a business system. And that was the main thing that attracted me to the program. The program has far exceeded my expectations. We've done so much more than I thought we would here. I have an amazing speaker sheet. I've already gotten many compliments on it. Your guidance has been super helpful to land a really big contract that I'm excited about and can't wait to share more about. So I'm just very happy, and the systems part of it, I think, one of my strengths is starting up some things. I'm really good at that startup, but the follow up and the organization is something that I always struggle with. So building the system is just monumentally helpful.
Yeah, well, it's been amazing to have you in the cohort, and I know you're using the CRM, right, to stay
Mhm.
organized, and it was really cool. We're going to be doing a podcast later on this summer,
Mhm.
and to get your link from the CRM, and it was all like, jazzed up, and I was like, okay,
Yes.
Angela's getting in here, really building her systems out. So that's just really cool to hear. You mentioned that you were a social worker, right,
Mhm.
and that you're also a consultant.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the work that you do with organizations? Because I think that folks who are watching this, like, yeah, you had a great talk about leaders, but might want to know a little bit more about your offers.
Yeah, thank you for sharing or asking that so I can share more. So more of the consulting work is focused on one, a couple different layers and levels of this, but one is supporting the leadership. Leaders are under more stress and demands than ever before. And when I'm talking about self leadership as a skill set, that is what we work on. We work on all processing and working on and naming and overcoming all of those challenges that pop up as a leader who's expected to do so much, not only the work, but managing others and showing up as their best self. And if they have a family or friends or community, right, there's so much that goes into that. So it's a lot of work with leaders in supporting them in that journey. I also provide a lot of education for folks who are more high achieving. Maybe it's that next level who, are aspiring to be that top leadership level. And we work on, how to identify and prevent those burnout symptoms. How do you, again, show up as that regulated leader? What do the practices look like? So those are the kind of things we're talking about. I do workshops, I do retreats, I do keynote speaking, and I love to tailor, presentations to the company's needs as well. And so we kind of really take a look at what's needed in that environment.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's talk a little bit about transformation, right? Like when you think about starting speaking for profit and where you are now, what has been like the biggest transformation or any wins that you want to share with the group?
Yeah, so many wins already. It's really, I think organization again is very important to me. And so like having that has been extremely helpful. The signature talk is something that I had never really nailed down. So I do like to personalize things. So I'd always be creating something new every single time, which again, I love to do that, but it's so nice. And it feels great to just have that signature talk that I can share, to whoever it's going to benefit. And then landing, a corporate client, that's a huge win. And just being able to feel more comfortable to kind of reach out and talk to folks. And I mean, I even was at the dentist the other day and I said, hey, do you all do educational trainings for your staff? So gloves are off. It's time to go.
I love it. So what's next for you, Angela, right? Like you got this corporate client, you've got a signature talk, you got a great system. What's next and how can folks continue to support your business?
Yes, thank you. So I'm really excited. I'm hosting a retreat for women professionals in leadership in Lake Como, Italy next May 2027. So I'm very
Italy, we're going abroad. Okay, fancy. Yeah. I like it.
Yes, I'm very excited to host that. I am, accepting more opportunities to work with folks in the speaking and workshop and training area. Eventually, I would love to be more of that in-house consultant and leadership coach, kind of over time with folks. And a lot of times people will start with, some workshops and then kind of decide if they want to kind of bring in for additional work. But I would love to kind of really support the in-house team. That's what we're working on there. I do one-on-one private advisor. I have a limited amount of those openings as well, but you can connect with me at the Angela Marie Williams on all social media platforms. And I'd be happy to chat with you about your organization's needs.
Well, thank you so much, Angela. Congratulations on all that you have going on. It's been amazing to have you in the program. And y'all, please continue to support her amazing work. Y'all, Italy, if y'all been trying to go to Italy, why not go with someone who's going to relax your nervous system and support you in becoming a better leader? I think that's a great trip to go on.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Definitely. Thank you so much for being here. Well, I'm going to bring BX back up to the stage to introduce our next amazing speaker. But Angela, you're going to hang out for a while, right? And listen to everyone else? Okay, great. Thanks so much for being here.
Awesome. Well, the speeches just keep getting better. Thank you so much, Evolve. Thank you so much, Angela, for that amazing speech. Again, folks, please feel free to drop some love, some fires in the chat to let Angela know and give her some love for that amazing signature talk that she shared with us. So I'm very excited. Yes, and the Talkadoc code's back up there. So if you didn't get a chance to fill that out, please scan that and give Angela some feedback. She also has a freebie that is listed there as well. I already did mine, so I know what it is, but feel free to fill it out so you can find out what it is as well. So thank you so much, folks, for filling that out. I'm excited to bring up our next speaker, E. Lee Dyer IV. This is someone who's been doing amazing work since joining Speaking for Profit. Lee really focuses on helping enterprise leaders, nonprofit executives, and people managers strengthen workplace culture, improve communication, and build healthier, high-performing teams. So I'm really excited to bring up Lee in order to share their signature talk with us. Lee, take it away.
All right. So today I want to talk to you about when culture fails. Early in my career, I had major surgery. My doctors told me to rest, my body told me to rest, but the culture around me made me believe that slowing down would be seen as a weakness and recovery would be mistaken for a lack of commitment. So I went back to work too soon and I paid for it physically. That experience changed the way I understood leadership forever. Because what happened to me, it wasn't an isolated incident. It was a symptom of something much bigger. Too many organizations have normalized broken culture, poor communication, inconsistent accountability, leadership gaps, burnout disguised as dedication, silence disguised as professionalism. And then leaders are shocked when good people disengage, burn out, or leave altogether. After my experience, I started to see the same patterns almost everywhere. In organizations and leadership teams and workplace cultures across industry, what looked like performance problems were often cultural problems. What looked like people problems were often leadership problems that no one wanted to name. Broken culture never stays hidden. It shows up in retention, morale, trust, engagement, performance, and ultimately the bottom line. Organizations do not lose great people overnight. They lose them slowly through environments that stop listening, stop supporting, and stop leading well. Now more than ever, organizations are under pressure to retain strong talent, navigate constant change, and produce results at a high level. But too many are trying to do this inside of systems that were not designed for people to thrive. So the question I get asked by most leaders, by executives, by founders, trying to fix what they did not break but inherited anyway, is some version of this. Lee, where do we even start? Here's what I tell them. If culture is infrastructure, then leaders need practices, not slogans. And I teach 3. The first practice is inspect before you decorate. I worked with a leader once who was incredibly proud of the culture of the work of her organization, the culture itself. They had a meditation room, they had ergonomic chairs, they had a chief happiness officer. They had quarterly culture surveys with beautiful dashboards. But when I sat with the team, what I heard was something completely different. People were exhausted. They felt unseen. They were doing the work of 2 and 3 roles. Leadership was conflict averse. Promotions often felt political. And the surveys, people had just stopped answering them, honestly, years ago. She had spent millions decorating and building a building that needed structural repair. Here's the truth. Most organizations invest in visible parts of the culture, the perks, the swag, the slogans, before they have an honest read on what actually is happening structurally underneath. You cannot fix what you have not honestly named, and you cannot name what you are scared to look at. So before another offsite, before another wellness app, before another values rollout, audit the architecture. Talk to the people closest to the work. Listen for what is not being said. Look at who's leaving and ask why they are honestly leaving. Inspect before you decorate. The second practice is this. In every building, there is a load-bearing wall. You can move the furniture, you can repaint, you can redesign every room. But if you touch the load-bearing wall, the whole structure comes down. In organizational culture, trust is the load-bearing wall. I worked with the team once, a mid-sized organization that had been struggling with a low morale and high turnover for years. Leadership believed that they were doing everything right. Competitive pay, good benefits, lots of cultural initiatives. But again, the real issue was trust. Employees no longer believed it was safe to speak honestly without consequences. One employee told me, I stopped raising concerns because I was tired of being seen as the problem. Within 18 months, more than half of the team was gone. The damage was preventable. When trust is intact, people give you the benefit of the doubt. They raise concerns early, they admit mistakes, they take risks, they tell you what they really think when you ask. When trust is broken, none of that happens. People go silent, problems hide, talent leaves quietly. So leaders, hear me on this. Trust is not something you announce. It is something that you create and architect through consistency, through follow through naming the hard things out loud before someone else has to, through admitting when you got it wrong, through protecting people who told you the truth. The fastest way to lose trust is to ask for honesty and then punish it. The fastest way to build trust is to receive hard feedback and respond with action, not defense. Build load-bearing trust, or watch everything else you build out fall. The third practice is this. Most organizations are designed to recruit, not to retain, unfortunately. Look at where the energy goes: recruiting teams, employer branding, onboarding programs, signing bonuses, glossy career sites. Now look at what happens after someone joins. Sometimes there are unclear expectations, inconsistent management, maybe not a real path to growth. career conversations that get scheduled and rescheduled, promotions handed out based on visibility, not contribution, feedback that comes once a year, if at all. We have built systems that are exceptional at attracting people, while sometimes being terrible at keeping them. The third practice is this: design for the stay. Ask different questions in your leadership meetings, not just how we attract talent, but how do we develop that talent? How do we hear talent? How do we promote talent? How do we keep talent when the market gets aggressive? How do we build a place where someone in 5 years is more bought in, not less? Design for the stay. Because if your culture is only built to recruit, your culture has an expiration date. 3 practices. Say them with me. Expect before you decorate, design for the stay, and build that trust-bearing wall. These are the practices that determine whether your organization is a place where people can actually thrive or just another structure that looks impressive from the outside and falls apart on the inside. My work challenges leaders and organizations to stop asking good people to survive broken systems and start building cultures where people can actually succeed, contribute, and stay. Because culture is not soft. Culture is infrastructure. And when it breaks, everything eventually breaks with it. And to find out more about my work and get in contact with me, definitely come to my Talk It Out, but also my website is www.eleedyer.com. And I look forward to getting in contact with you and doing some great work.
Awesome job, Lee. Thank you so much for that signature talk. Really love the things that you shared in there and just the way that you invited the audience to think about culture and how that is cultivated, thinking about those different practices that folks can use to make sure that folks are feeling supported, but also that they're in thriving environments. So thank you so much, Lee, for that speech and for the amazing work that you do. Now I would love for the audience to just get a chance to learn a little bit more about you and the work that you do. So how did you get started in speaking?
Actually, it came with my original full-time job. So I've been outside of the organizational strategy work, been about higher ed for about a decade. And if you know the higher ed realm, I've been in the inclusion and equity part of it. So I'm going to speak every 5 seconds. And so from doing that, I wanted to branch out into my own as I was starting to see, different organizational problems happen, whether it be in the higher ed realm, the nonprofit realm, and some of the corporate realm, and some of the work I do there.
Awesome. Yes, I'm also someone in higher ed, so I feel you on talking every 5 seconds. And especially in your role, I know they had you like, Lee, we need you for this. Lee, we need you for this. So yes, I love to see that that's something that started and unlocked some of that passion. And then you took it into your own direction to kind of double down on that. Which leads me to what made you decide to join the Speaking for Profit cohort, and what has your experience been like?
Well, what made me join the cohort was, I had been out here trying to piecemeal it myself. And as a leader, sometimes you have to just recognize when you need help, and had saw the program, saw the previous cohorts, and really want to take that time to invest into myself. And one thing I will say about S4P, as a person who thinks they know everything all the time, I really learned a lot. And also too, if you're a person who you're good at a lot of things, so it gets so broad that it can confuse you. One thing I really do appreciate about the academy was like narrowing down the niche and learning that, like, okay, if I narrow this down, I can definitely gain more from being spread out so thin across all the great topics and things that I know.
Yes, that's a big point, right? So many of us, we want to do a little bit of everything, right? But really being able to hone in on what are we truly a master of and being able to share that expertise with others. So thank you for sharing that. And thinking about that or along that same vein, what has been some transformation that you've experienced with your time in the program? What are some wins that you're celebrating?
So am celebrating. Crazy thing is, I think I was in the program 2 weeks, learned the things from the first two sessions we had, and then got booked right after that. So the bookings have been coming in, and everything that I've learned and I've incorporated in, from the academy into what I do has made everything so much better. So, I know everybody sees like the great reviews that the academy has, but I can say for sure, like, this is legit, and everything that you learn, if you incorporate it, you will do well, and it will increase your visibility as well as the engagements that come your way.
That's amazing. That's amazing. What a testimony, right? So after 2 weeks, you were already like, hey, the bookings are coming in. This stuff is working. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And what's next for you? I know you spoke a little bit about some bookings that you have. So it sounds like you're a little bit booked and busy. So if folks want to work with Lee, get in the books, y'all, because calendar's filling up. But what's next for you? And what are some ways that folks can support you and stay connected to your business?
Yeah, so I have a few engagements coming up with some different employee resource groups here in the DMV area. But I also am going to be, for the August coming up, doing a retreat where I want to take either entry-level or mid-level employees that are trying to get to the next level and just help them with their professional development. And I also, folks that need executive coaching or looking to do some retreats or some different trainings with their staff, that are trying to figure out, where's the tension, the problem, where's the gap? So opening, up for that as well. And so definitely, come to the website, fill out the form, and someone from the consulting group's team will get back with you. And we love to get you on, on a call for a discovery call to find out how, Elite Consulting Group can help you, take your organization, your enterprise to the next level.
Thank you so much, Lee. Thank you for your signature talk, the wisdom that you shared with us, sharing more about your story. We really appreciate that. Folks, please feel free to drop some fires and love for Lee in the chat. Let him know how well he did, as well as continue to fill out his Talkadot, give him some feedback, as well as learn about ways that you can stay connected to Lee and his consulting group. So again, thank you so much, Lee. We're about to bring up Evolve so that we can go ahead and share more about ways for you all to get connected to the Speaking for Profit Academy.
All right, y'all, give it up for Lee. That is an S4P alum currently, right? So congratulations, fam. And also a Dillard University person as well. We went to DU together, Dillard University. Shouts out to anyone who went to an HBCU. Maybe your mama went to an HBCU. Maybe your youngin', your child is going to HBCU. Shouts out to all of y'all. And thank you so much for being here. I know folks are watching this and you're having a great time. If you are, please continue to put things in the chat. We see them coming through. Some of the stuff we're not going to put right on the stage because we want to make sure that this video is utilized in the near and dear future. But thank y'all so much for showing everyone love. I'll bring up some of the stuff that we have had in the chat just so some of our speakers can see it. We had someone showing some love for Nisha when Nisha was speaking because Nisha did a great job. Angela, this might be your husband. I think this might be your husband because I see the last name. I'm just assuming, but showing some love to you, Angela, of course. And when you were speaking, Lee, Brandon also said that this was a great topic. So thank you all for being in the audience and being with us today. Speaking for Profit Academy is a cohort. It is a community. It's the space where we not only support you with your signature talk, but cultivating your business development. And I just want to share with you that we do have another cohort that we'll be doing later on this year. It'll be starting in August. I'm going to just share my screen really quickly so you can see a little bit of the information. But if you're interested in the cohort, the best thing that you can do is to sign up for the waitlist. The waitlist is going to be the way that you get information early. I will let you know that we keep our cohort small and intimate for a reason, because we are sharing some of the most like intimate parts of our business and our lives, and we don't work with everybody. So this is an application process. You got to turn the application in before you get set up with us. But I'll share my screen so that you can see a little bit of it. And then we're going to get into our next speaker, of course, because our next speaker is going to really wow y'all. So the cohort will start in August. If you want to go over to our website, speakingforprofit.com, you can click on the academy, but you can also get there shortly by going to speakingforprofitacademy.lovable.app. You will go over there, you'll click the link to join the waitlist, and this will tell you a little bit about the program, including the cost of it and all of that. We are very transparent when it comes to that because we know that it's a big commitment, and we want to make sure that you have all the information that you need. Once you sign up for the waitlist later on this summer, around late June, July, I'll be sending out some emails. We'll get on a call, look over your application and see if you qualify for it. Qualifications are dependent on, do you have a talk that's going to impact the world? Are you committed to setting up a business structure and showing up for our 12-week cohort? Are you committed to being in a group of folks? And we don't work with folks who are beginners. So if you're just getting started and you're like, I'm just trying to get over the fear of public speaking, this isn't the program for you. We want people who are already committed and know that they have a speech that's going to change the world. So if that's you and you're interested, please head over to speakingforprofit.com. Click on the Academy or the Accelerator, or you can go to speakingforprofitacademy.lovable.app, join the waitlist, and we look forward to having a conversation with you in the near and dear future to see if this is the right thing for you. The Academy has been something that has literally changed my life, y'all. I started Speaking for Profit University because I was lonely, y'all, doing this and building this business by myself. And it's just been amazing to have family, friends, and colleagues that I not only know are amazing speakers, but that I can send opportunities to as well. So one of the things that I love about the Academy is that we're building our own economy. And as you've heard so many speakers today, some of the topics are similar, or I could even see them doing some programming together, and that has happened in our time together. So thank you so much for letting me do a commercial real quick. You know, it's always good to have a good commercial break. Hope this gave you an opportunity to get some water, you know, take care of yourself, get a good snack. And now we'll get into bringing up our next amazing speaker. So let me just do a couple of things on my back end. Okay, great. So let's get into it. The next speaker that we have coming to the stage, y'all, that I'm excited to bring to the stage is actually someone that I've known for a while in the internet world, but had an opportunity to get on a call with, just like the call you might get on in the future about the Academy. And they were very interested, and they said, you know what? She said, you know what? I'm in Evolve. Like I've seen your work. I want to get into this. So Dr. Carlette Norwood is an amazing speaker. A thought agent when it comes to working with Black women in particular around trauma-informed care, an amazing artist and playwright, a professor, just has done so much in the world and in her work. And I'm just excited to hear her signature talk, coming all the way from the United Kingdom. So please welcome, give some applause as we bring Dr. Carlette Norwood to the stage. Welcome. You're still muted, so come off mute so we can hear your amazing voice.
Of course I was. What a way to make an entrance, right?
Welcome to the space. I can't wait to hear your speech.
Thank you. It's good to be here. So tonight I would like to talk about the weight we carry, how trauma and survival shape the way we love, lead, and live. So a few years ago, I found myself sitting in my car after an argument, staring straight ahead in complete silence, replaying the conversation over and over again, and wondering how had I somehow become the problem in situations that were consistently hurting me. And I remember thinking what many people in emotionally unhealthy relationships begin to think. Maybe I'm asking for too much honesty, too much consistency, too much communication, and too much emotional presence. But what I eventually began to understand was that I was not asking for too much. I had simply become accustomed to emotionally unavailable people giving me far less than I deserved while simultaneously making me feel guilty for needing more. And once you have experienced enough emotionally immature relationship, enough gaslighting, enough inconsistency disguised as love, sometimes some things begin to happen psychologically. You start doubting your own instincts. You start over explaining yourself. You start becoming hyper aware of other people's moods while disconnecting from your own needs. You begin managing relationships through emotional survival rather than emotional safety. As both a sociologist and storyteller, I have spent years thinking about the hidden ways people adapt to emotional survival. In my research, my creative work, and in the conversation with people over the years, I've noticed something fascinating and deeply unsettling. Many people have become so skilled at surviving that they no longer recognize survival in themselves at all. It simply becomes who they are. Hypervigilance becomes over-observant. Emotional self-protection becomes independence. Exhaustion becomes ambition. And the ability to function while quietly falling apart becomes something people praise you for. We live in a world that rewards people for surviving beautifully, especially Black women and women who learned very early that love could disappear, safety could disappear, belonging could disappear, and that the quickest way to avoid abandonment was to become useful. So people become caretakers, performers, high achievers, the person who holds everything together because somewhere along the way, they learned that competence feels safer than vulnerability. And many people become so fluent in survival that they no longer recognize themselves outside of it. That is the part I think we don't talk about enough. Many people aren't actually living. They are managing unhealed survival patterns with impressive efficiency. They are productive, functional, accomplished. They show up to work, they meet deadlines, they answer emails, they smile in meetings while privately carrying the emotional exhaustion they don't even have a language for yet. Because survival changes people quietly. It changes the way people love, the way they trust, the way they enter rooms, the way they respond to conflict, the way they apologize for having needs, the way they shrink themselves to keep other people comfortable. And after years of adapting, many people stop asking themselves whether something hurt them and start asking themselves why they are struggling to carry it all so well. That is how survival turns into shame. One of the cruelest things trauma does is to convince people to feel guilty for the ways they learn to survive. People blame themselves for struggling for trust, for staying in relationships that diminished them, for becoming emotionally guarded, for needing reassurance, for feeling tired all of the time. But survival responses are not character flaws, they are adaptations, intelligent adaptations to environments that required people to abandon parts of themselves in order to remain emotionally safe. And some of those survival patterns did not even begin with us. We inherit emotional survival in ways that are often invisible, through silence, through fear, through family dynamics nobody names out loud, through generations of people who learned how to endure pain without ever being given permission to process it. Some people inherit the belief that emotions are weakness. Others inherit the belief that love must be earned through self-sacrifice. Others inherit the belief that strength means enduring harm quietly without complaint. And if you hear those messages long enough, you stop asking whether something feels healthy. You start asking whether it feels familiar. That is why harmful relationships can become so difficult to leave, because trauma reshapes familiarity. Chaos becomes recognizable. Emotional inconsistency becomes normal. And hypervigilance begins to feel like connection, which people often confuse emotional intensity and emotional safety. I think many people have spent years trying to heal from experiences they were taught to normalize. And the problem with normalizing survival is that eventually people stop seeing themselves as wounded. They start seeing themselves as defective. They think, why can I not relax? Why do I struggle to trust people? Why do I feel guilty resting? Why do I always feel emotionally prepared for something to go wrong? But survival is not supposed to feel peaceful. Survival is the body trying to protect itself. The issue is that many people never got the opportunity to stop surviving long enough to ask themselves who they are beneath it. That is why healing can feel so unfamiliar, because healing asks people to do things survival never allowed them to do. Rest, trust, soften, set boundaries, speak honestly, because they believe they deserve relationships where love does not require suffering. Believe they deserve environments where they are not constantly bracing for harm. And I think that is the conversation I want us to have more often. Not just conversations about resilience, but conversations about the cost of it. Because resilience is often celebrated without acknowledging the grief that's attached to it. We admire people for carrying enormous emotional weight without ever asking whether they should have had to carry it in the first place. But awareness changes things. Language changes things. When people finally understand that many of their behaviors were survival responses rather than personal failures, shame begins to loosen its grip. And when shame loosens its grip, people begin making different choices. They begin setting boundaries without apologizing for them. They begin recognizing manipulation instead of normalizing it. They begin questioning systems and relationships that require self-erasure in exchange for acceptance. And that is where healing begins. Not in pretending the weight never existed, but in finally telling the truth about how heavy it was. Because the truth is, the weight we carry does not disappear simply because we learn how to function beneath it. And some people become so skilled at functioning that nobody realizes how heavy their emotional lives have become. But something shifts when people finally find language for what they have lived through. Something shifts when people stop seeing themselves as broken and begin understanding themselves as human beings who are adapted to painful circumstances in deeply intelligent ways. And sometimes that understanding is the first moment people stop surviving long enough to actually begin living. So if you recognize yourself in any of this, I want you to know that healing begins with a few uncomfortable but necessary shifts. Stop calling survival personality. Stop confusing familiarity with safety. Stop rewarding yourself for tolerating emotional harm. Start paying attention to relationships that require you to abandon yourself in order to keep them. And most importantly, stop carrying shame for the ways you learned to survive environments that were never emotionally safe to begin with. Because many people are not broken. They are simply carrying weight. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for that. I'm really sitting with, I've heard so many great talks around healthy relationships, but the fact that you're talking about like we got to give ourselves credit for the tools and the resources that we've had to build for survival is just it's just so wonderful to hear and refreshing. I took it in. I was over here trying to take notes and I said, no, I need to take this in because this is something that's for the soul. It's not necessarily for the notebook. It's something that I actually need to take in as an affirmation. Thank you so much, Carlette, for being
It was
here. And
my
for
absolute pleasure.
Yes, we got some good stuff in the chat. So deeply touched by that. That was amazing. I felt that. Yes, thank you so much. So Carlette, tell us where you're located first, right? Because you're the farthest, right? We always got to shout out the person the farthest in the room.
Yeah, I'm in Birmingham, UK, which is in the West Midlands of the United Kingdom, but by way of Washington, D.C.
Okay, nice. How long have you been in the UK?
Coming up on 10 years next month.
Wow. So you was ahead of the boat, right? Like we all are over here trying to get out now, and you knew 10 years ago it was time to exit. That's what you're telling me.
Let me tell you something. When he got elected the first time, I was like, y'all, I'm out. So I left in 2016 to come over here to write my PhD, which was a comparative study of the similarities and differences in the racial experiences between Black American women and Black British women. And that was 5 years of my life here doing that. And then as I was coming out, my daughter was going into university, and I was able to get a couple of postdoc positions, conducting research and writing papers and articles, peer reviewed. And yeah, I just stayed over here and made a life, opened a business, started my consultancy, and here I am. And as much as I miss home, I'm not going back, y'all. I'm sorry.
I totally understand that, and I totally understand why. So before this like amazing research that you did and you moved, how did you get into public speaking and consulting? Can you take us a little bit down that journey?
Well, I started off when I was about 4 years old, wrapping a blanket around my neck and talking to my stuffed animals. And I just kept going from there. I think my first real public speaking engagement was an international dinner that I did in high school, where they asked me to welcome the people into the dinner. And so I took it upon myself. There was about 12 countries being represented. And I took it upon myself to say good evening and welcome to each one of those countries in in their native language. And I think I just started from there. And I have done everything from, I've done a podcast for 5 years. I have interviewed hundreds of people. I'm a guest lecturer. I have given keynote addresses to the corporate sector, through academia. You say it, and I've done it probably.
That's beautiful. So you found, speaking for profit, you found me, right? We've been connected online for a while. But what made you decide to join the cohort at this time? And what are some things that you've learned during your time with us?
I decided to join the cohort because even though I have all of these years of experience and practice, I really wanted to take my speaking and kick it up a notch. I wanted to transition from these smaller gigs to main stages, global, that type of thing. And so yes, you and I had been friends on Facebook for a long time, and I was behind the bushes peeking, seeing what you were doing. And I decided to take the opportunity. I admire your work ethic, and that is so important to me. I only align with people that I can see that are not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And I consistently see the content that you put out. I see your success stories of previous graduates, and I said, yeah, this is for me. And I knew I had something major coming up, but I made a way to, with your help, make it work despite all of that. So I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's been an honor to work with you and to see your transformation, and just to see like you take the simplicity of what we do, but also bring it into the amazing complexity of your work and simplify your work. Like, you've done so much. So I know recently we met and we were looking at your LinkedIn, and we were really like simplifying it so that you could connect with the people that need to get the medicine from you right now. So I'm just so excited for you. So let's talk about transformation, right?
Yes.
Like, before the program, where were you, and what are some transformations that have happened in the last 12 weeks for you?
Well, I was the only, or maybe one of the only, I don't know of another, Black women theater owners in the UK. And for various reasons, we operated for 2 years, but for various reasons, I closed the actual venue itself, but I still maintained the theater group. So I think, especially with women in my generation or my age group, my demographic, we're always looking for ways how we can kind of step back, but we also still need to be feeling like we're relevant. So I wanted to still be present and get my message across, because I have such a love for Black women. I'm always trying to think of ways of how I can give back to the community, how I can help. And I do that through my PhD mentoring. And I thought, I became a coach, and so I do life coaching as well. But I also wanted to get the message on a wider scale that we are a product of the things that we have experienced in life, but they don't need to define us. And I think sometimes we get stuck because we are constantly putting out fires, that we don't have enough time to recover from one fire before we're dealing with something else. And so I really wanted to get out this message the best way that I can, but it's more about giving back to the community more than anything.
Yeah. And I know that you're working on, right, like potentially a documentary,
I
right, that you
am.
can do with your work. Would you like to share a little bit about the documentary? And I would love for you to share a little bit even about the theater work that you're doing as well.
So I have done everything from I've written film scripts, I've written plays, I've written audio theater scripts, but I really turn my focus toward theater making. And I was at a museum that was a Titanic museum up in Liverpool, and I walked away from that exhibit wondering, like, were there any Black people on the Titanic? Like, I don't even know if anybody had ever asked that question before. And I went down a rabbit hole of research, and I found out that, in fact, there was a Black man aboard the Titanic. And I wrote a play about him, and I became so consumed with the story. And we put it on in my theater. It sold out every single performance. It was critically acclaimed. And so now I am looking for a producer that can also kick that up to the next level. But I used my theater to tell stories and use voices that wouldn't typically be been able to be told on the main stage. And so it wasn't until very recently that part of the reason that I mean, it was a Black man on the Titanic, and he was a second-class passenger. He was an aristocrat in his own right. He wasn't down in the boiler room, and this story hadn't been told. But as I was writing it, I didn't realize that his migration story, because he was taken, he left Haiti, his native home, and was sent to France, where he experienced horrific racism. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that my own migration story and some of the reasons really resonated with me and my own journey. So I've kind of combined my journey of how I started with little, next to nothing, and how our stories are very similar and how they're intertwined. And I think it would make a great documentary. And so, yeah, I'm looking for somebody to come on board and produce it for me.
I love it. So y'all, if you're watching this, right, please reach out to Dr. Carlette Norwood. They can reach out to you on LinkedIn. You're on that platform now, right? Which
I also have my website too, carlettenorwood.com.
Yes, please, y'all, reach out. We want to get this story out there because it's only been shown like in the UK, right? Has it been shown in the US yet?
No, not yet. And I'd love to
Right?
take it global.
Yeah,
I want to make
so
it a
y'all-
Netflix movie, y'all. So
yeah, we got to get this story out there. So if you know someone, if you're doing film, if you're a producer, please reach out. This is something that I think is going to be so promising. And as we are seeing more erasure of our stories, it's even more important that we uplift stories like this. So anything else that you want to share with the audience about what's next for you?
that's the poster there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's right there. Yeah, I'm just looking for opportunities where I can spread the message and support, empower Black women. And, it's not necessarily a message of resilience, because we hear that all of the time. It's just it's a message of how to deal with everything that you've had to deal with before. We don't have to be strong all the time. And that is what we've been led to believe. We're human too, and we should be able to express and sit in our own emotions without being judged for that.
I know that's right. And you do life coaching as well. So if folks want
I
to support and get some love on that. Okay, definitely, y'all.
Thank you.
Please reach out. It's been amazing to have you in the program. I'm so honored to get to know you, right? Like, you know people online, but you don't really know them until we're in this intimate space. And it's just been an honor to be able to work with you.
I feel exactly the same, Evolve, and I literally cannot wait to meet you and hug your neck.
I can't wait as well. We'll see each other in a few weeks. Thank y'all. Y'all give it up for Dr. Carlette Norwood coming through from the UK, giving us so much love. I'm going to pass it back over to BX to bring up our next speaker. Y'all, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Please continue to show love in the chat. We appreciate y'all so much for being here.
Yes, yes. Amazing job, Dr. Carlette. Loved your speech. Again, you already know what I'm going to say. Drop the fires and the hearts in the chat so Dr. Carlette can feel that love. But thank you so much, folks. And thank you, Dr. Carlette, for that signature talk. So the next person I'm going to be inviting to the stage is Kara Chang. Kara could not be with us today, but Kara was proactive and was prepared and sent us a video. So we will get a chance to hear Kara's signature talk. But Kara is a trans dating coach specialist, does a lot of great work with both individuals and organizations, making sure that for individuals, they're thinking a lot about their self-worth, ways to really make sure that they're engaging in safe dating practices. And for a lot of our organizations, figuring out ways that they can be more inclusive and mindful of trans and non-binary folks who are using their sites to find love. So the next voice you're going to hear after mine will be that of Kara Chang.
The problem isn't that trans people are unlovable. The problem is that we've been taught a story about love that wasn't built with us in mind. When we approach love, we have to stop asking ourselves, will they choose me? And start asking, do I choose this? Now look, I'm a trans woman who's been around the block. I've seen it all. Being kept a dirty little secret, the one-night stands, rampant hookups, being sent on a scavenger hunt because someone was afraid to be seen with me in public. Okay, I'm going to buzz you in. You're going to take the elevator up to the 7th floor, make sure no one can see you, knock twice, and I'll meet you at the door. I've been there. I've made all the mistakes so you don't have to. And I've come out on the other side, not only finding love, but helping others do the same. And every day that we perpetuate this belief that trans people will never find love, more and more people are abandoning themselves. They're staying in situations that are below their standards, that don't honor them, or never even giving themselves a chance to be fully loved. Because we're in a time where visibility is higher than ever. But visibility without empowerment is dangerous. And if we don't change the narrative today, we risk repeating the same cycles for generations to come. And that has to change now. So what can we do to tackle this narrative that we've been feeding ourselves? 1, we can reframe identity in dating. Being trans is not a liability. It's a filter. It doesn't limit your options. It clarifies them. Now look, I'm trans. There's no changing that. It is what it is. You're either going to be okay with it or you're not. Life is too short to try and convince someone to love you. Being trans, while it's a part of me, is the least personal thing about me. It's the least interesting thing about me. If someone can't accept me at my most baseline level, then they're already not my person. The people who matter don't mind, and the people who mind don't matter. 2, we can raise our standards, not our tolerance. Love is not about being chosen at any cost. It's about being met, respected, and celebrated. Let's be honest, when we're on a first date, what's our first initial thought? I hope they like me. No, I hope you like them. You have worth. You have value. You are the catch. Why are we already putting ourselves in a position of us pining for them when it's no, we know how amazing we are. Why are we seeking out their validation? Being trans is a part of us, but it doesn't diminish our value. In fact, it enhances it. Smart dating is not about who's going to like me, who's going to like me. Smart dating is about who am I going to like. Life is too short to try and convince someone to love you. 3, we can normalize desire and honesty. We need more honest conversations about what we want without the fear of losing someone. If it's a no for you, then it's a no. We shouldn't have to lower our standards, debase ourselves in order to appease someone. If in trying to attract someone, we lose ourselves and we go against our own values, our standards, then it's a no. The right person will like you for all of you and honor you and respect you without you having to abandon yourself in the process. Trans people have long told ourselves that we will never find love. Now, is that the truth? Or is that the story we've been telling ourselves? We need to start challenging those beliefs. When did I first learn that I was unlovable? Who taught me that? We are not born into this world with bias. Those are learned behaviors. Now look, I've been there. I know what it's like to feel unlovable, that no one's ever going to love you and accept you for who you are. to feel untouchable. And once again, I had found myself in another situationship, toxic, unhealthy. And in that moment, as I was being screamed at, sneered at, being told how lucky I was to have found someone who would even begin to love and accept me, that I could never do any better, that this was as good as it was ever going to get, and that no one was ever going to love me and accept me like this person did. I remember thinking to myself in that moment, I am exactly the kind of person that this happens to. Trans, insecure, not honoring myself, not loving myself, scared to be alone. And in that moment, I had clarity. If this is the best that I can get, then I will keep accepting the worst that people have to offer. And that moment broke me. And in that, I found empowerment. I finally stopped asking myself, will they choose me? And instead started asking, do I choose this? That question changed my life. I want you to close your eyes and think about your life and the love story you want for yourself. What kind of love story do you want to normalize for yourself and for the trans people who come after you?
Amazing, amazing. Let's give it up. Show some love for Cara in the chat. Feel free to drop some loves or some fires. We also have Cara's Talkadot, so please scan this in order to share some feedback with Cara around how that talk resonated with you. And I believe she may also have a freebie that is there as well. So please scan that QR code and give some feedback. But Cara, that was a really amazing talk. And just thinking about ways to reposition, right? I really love that questioning of, sometimes folks go into dates and it's like, are they going to like me? But it's more about, are you going to like them? Are you liking what you're seeing in that space? Is this actually in alignment with what you see for your love story? So really, really appreciate that. And just the phenomenal work that Cara is doing and really changing how trans people are engaging in the dating scene, but also how organizations are creating safe landscapes for trans people to engage. So thank you so much, Cara, for that amazing work that you do. So folks, just take some time to do that. Talkadot, thank you so much. We're going to keep trugging forward. So we do have another speaker that we're going to be bringing to the stage. Geronda is on deck. So we're so excited to bring Geronda to the stage. Geronda has been in Speaking for Profit for many years in different variations of our program. But Geronda is an expert that helps organizations cultivate psychological safe spaces for their employees and really challenges the experts and leaders of those spaces to think about how they're cultivating their culture. What does it look like where folks feel safe to speak up? Folks feel safe to actually bring forth concerns. So the next voice you'll hear after mine will be that of Geronda Wallach-Spiller. Take it away.
So before we start, I want you to think of that leader or that manager, the one that you know could clear an entire room with just a look. The manager that really made you have to sit down and rehearse tons and tons of times an email just to ask for some time off. Or you're going around the office and you're asking coworkers, is this the right time for me to actually share an idea? Because you're trying to establish the room. Now, then imagine finding out that while you were walking on eggshells around them, they were probably going to their boss and saying, oh, my team has no problems. We're doing great. The problem is that leaders are actually taught to prioritize driving results more than those who actually get them there. And we need to stop believing that silence from teams actually means that there aren't any issues and start treating silence as the most important thing to pay attention to. Over the past decade, I've helped mid-level leaders build loyal, high-performing teams, and the work is rooted a lot in my own lived experience. So I know what it's like to feel like you have to tread lightly before speaking up to a manager or even a senior leader, and before offering any input or challenging the status quo. I'd quietly really just check in with my colleagues and gauge leadership's mood and openness. And then when we had our performance reviews or had to fill out the engagement surveys, I would arrive to those questions that were directed to my manager or my leadership team. And what I wrote was honestly never what I truly wanted to say. silence is the most important thing to pay attention to. And it actually turns out that what I experienced wasn't even just my story. It has a name, and I realized that researchers have been studying this for decades. Morrison and Milliken's seminal work on organizational silence demonstrates that employees often withhold concerns because they actually see speaking up as dangerous or futile, not because there aren't any issues or that they don't exist. And that silence does become a systemic barrier to change and development in complex pluralistic organizations. And then we have Amy Edmondson's research on psychological safety, which similarly finds that in low safety teams, people engage in impression management. They're protecting their image rather than sharing that bad news or dissent. And that actually creates a false sense of consensus that allows flawed plans or risks and inequities to persist, especially unchecked. So silence, it isn't just the absence of voice, it's an active behavior that is tied to three things: burnout, turnover, and disengagement. So when leaders are misreading silence as alignment, they aren't just missing that problem, they're also helping to create it. And right now, there are too many leaders that are mistaking a quiet room for a healthy team, especially in hybrid and remote workplaces. That confusion has never been more dangerous. Silence often means that people feel unsafe or unseen, or they're certain that their voice isn't going to change anything, so why say something? Not that everything is fine. Silence is still the most important thing to pay attention to. Now, as a queer Black woman, I've had my share of having a strong urge to just hold back when it came to speaking my mind. And a lot of this was really in fear of being seen as the angry Black woman. And early in my career, when you're super overly confident and you think you know everything, I honestly had an opinion on everything. I was always empowered to speak my mind, but I really had a huge awakening when I tried to actually speak up during a meeting with clients, which also included my manager. And you might see where this is going. So buckle up. I was a couple of months into my role, and I was so excited about it. I was a new HR associate at a mid-sized tech company. I was sitting in a meeting with my manager, a few of our clients, and their team. And we were all wanting to work together to start strategizing ways that we can improve how we implement this new human resources information system, or HRIS. My manager actually suggested that we start by gathering the head of product's perspective, and then we can just use that and share that as part of the implementation plan with those who are going to be using this HRIS. Well, I stepped in and I said, if I may, I think perhaps we start with taking time to speak with each country leader, getting their specific needs so that we are ensuring everything is encompassed in this HRIS. My manager not only dismissed my idea, but then also spoke to me after that meeting, demanding that I get approval before sharing any ideas in any future meetings. As you can imagine, my confidence was crushed after that moment. And so I stopped speaking up in meetings, sharing ideas, because they were constantly not approved. And so I would just take notes and go along with whatever was recommended, even if I disagreed. Then I noticed that others on the team were actually doing the same. They weren't speaking up either. They shared similar sentiments for why they even stopped speaking up too. And then we would watch as our manager would go to leadership and say that the team was doing so great and that no news means really good news. But what they didn't realize, though, is that there were significant ramifications that came afterwards. I felt like my entire career was over. And then Jordan came in and everything changed. Jordan was my life coach, honestly helping me to rebuild my power and my confidence, both personally and professionally, because they were very much intertwined. And it hit me. Jordan really asked me to share that moment where I first realized I had lost my confidence. And I, of course, shared the encounter that I had with my manager. But then she asked a question that opened up an entirely new world. What do you wish your manager had done differently that would have had a positive impact on you and your team's confidence? And I thought about this and I said, well, I would start by just explaining the impact of silence on our team early on, and how we can just best work together. Because I really think bringing that awareness to my manager could have saved the team from losing more than 50% of our colleagues. And then I looked at Jordan as if a light bulb in my mind just illuminated the entire space, and it hit me. I wonder how many teams this happens to, and how many managers are actually unaware of these ramifications. And so after several sessions, many sessions, I made it my mission to work with leaders to make them aware that silence from their teams does not mean that there aren't any issues, and to start treating silence as the most important thing to pay attention to. Silence is the most important thing to pay attention to. And so, how do we do that? We practice inclusive leadership every single day. And that can happen in ways of building real speak up channels and not just relying so much on just surveys. We need to have people feel that they can have their voices rewarded, and also that they can be protected for being a risk taker. So also do that. And one thing that you can actually try tomorrow in a team meeting or any next meeting that you have is ask one question. What is one risk or concern that we're actually not talking about? Then stay quiet all the way through the awkward pause. And it's gonna be awkward. But when somebody does actually speak, thank them by their name and reflect what you actually heard. And then name one concrete next step based on their input, so your team starts to learn that speaking up creates impact, not risk. That silence, the one right after your question, is where leadership really happens. That silence is the most important thing to pay attention to. Now, what if your legacy as a leader isn't about the goals that you hit, but it's more about the truths that your team never felt safe to say out loud? And years from now, when your team is telling stories of what it was like to work with you, will they remember you as that person they went silent around to survive? Or the one who actually made it impossible to stay silent about what really mattered? Thank you, everybody. So there's my talk-a-dot. I would love your feedback. Good, bad, the ugly. But then you can either scan the QR code, you can go to the link there under or go to and prompt in that code word. So I very much appreciate you all.
All right. Amazing job, Geronda. Really, really loved that talk and all the great wisdom that you shared with us. One big takeaway that I definitely want to highlight is silence can always be awkward, right? When you ask a question, when you're waiting for information, you have to wait through that pause. But what I'm hearing from Geronda is an invitation to actually lean in, right? Lean into that silence, figure out what we can learn from that silence. What are some ways that we can follow up, look at body language? There's so many things that can be told in those silent moments. I think sometimes we turn away from them, but it's more about leaning in. So thank you so much, Geronda, for that reminder.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. And please, folks, feel free to drop the loves and the fires in the chat as well so that we can hype Geronda up after that amazing signature talk. So, Geronda, I know everyone is eager to hear more about you, what you do, ways to connect. So we also have someone dropping in right now. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for highlighting that. Our first question for the interview is, how did you get started in speaking?
Oh, so I actually got started in high school. I ran for student government. And I thought it would just be super fun to do. So I ran as secretary. And what I realized is that like that was a moment being on a stage and talking about my goals and who I am, where I just felt super comfortable. And I felt like I could just be myself. And so what I found to be where I kind of made that pivot was when I was running for office, I was like, I'm going to make this fun. I'm not going to make this super serious. And I had a couple of people, some of my friends and some of their friends in the front row. And I had them have signs and each had a letter for each letter of my name. And so I ran across the stage and I was like, give me a G, give me an E. And it was just so much fun that I was like, I love this. And I want to continue to do stuff like this. And so that's how I got started. And then I started realizing in high school, you'd have to give presentations, and I'd be excited to give the presentations. And it just morphed into college, and then after college, and in work. And so I just felt like this is something that I love to do. And it's pretty cool that I can actually get paid for it. So that's kind of what led me into that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I love that you already had that fan base with you early on, right? Getting folks to cheer you on, throw up those letters. I really love that. Which leads us into the next question, right? What made you join Speaking for Profit, the cohort, and what has been your experience and some takeaways for you?
Yeah. So at the beginning, you all mentioned that I've been with Speaking for Profit for a while, for a couple of years. And I've had such a transformative experience in every different phase of Speaking for Profit. And so when this cohort became available, I had heard of others who had participated in past cohorts. And I was like, okay, yes, I need to be in there. And so the reason why I joined, aside from you and Evolve paying me, was, I'm just kidding, I didn't get paid. But the reason why I decided to join really was because I knew that I was getting some good traction in my business, but I didn't have the right systems. I was kind of clear on where I wanted to go, but I wanted to make a shift. And going through this cohort, the accountability that I was able to have one-on-one, but also in a group of people who were on a similar journey as me, was just so helpful. And so I learned more about it. And when Evolve was going through just what it would involve, then I was like, okay, sign me up. And so joining that it was just amazing to be able to get more clarity and have that accountability. And I had an amazing accountability partner who you heard earlier, Angela Williams, and having just that connection throughout the program was just so helpful for me in my business. So I have like more systems now, and I feel good about the direction that I'm going in. And so that's why I joined.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Geronda. And just speaking to the power of systems and community, right? Those are two themes that I definitely heard just ringing through in what you shared. So thank you so much. And speaking of that transformation, right? What would be some big shifts that you've noticed for your time in S4P, as well as what are some wins that you're celebrating from your time in the cohort?
Yeah, so the biggest shifts I would say, even starting early on in S4P, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And so I was like, I kind of want to talk about this thing. I think it makes sense to talk about it, but like, what do I do with it? And so in joining, I had so much of clarity as well, but it was very much based on who I am as an individual. How do I want to get my messaging out there? And I learned more about like my brand, which I didn't know was something that I could do, or something that would like bring me this power to be able to just be myself and bring what I want. I always thought like you start a business and you have to just go into a certain mold. And so that was really transformative for me when I had joined. There was just such an acceptance of my authenticity. And it was very important to you and Evolve to have that as part of my business. And I would also say, it was a really helpful journey to start off with, okay, here's a topic I want to go off of, but now let's get you to think about your audience, and then think about your pricing, and then think about, like, so it was so sequenced so well that now I have this whole package that I feel super confident when I'm talking to potential clients to say, oh, like, this would work well for you, or let's kind of talk about this. Um, and I think for the cohort in itself, one win from the cohort, there's many wins, but one win from the cohort, I would say, is that because of the work that I do, and because of some of the scrutiny that's happening with DEI, I was able to kind of learn more about how do I make that shift in a way, but I don't lose that messaging and the priorities for my business. But also, now I have access to automation that I didn't have before. You all have this fantastic CRM that I now, so a win for me is I'm like managing who I'm talking to, and I can better track who I'm speaking to, that in a way that's not super manual, but also I get the full picture of like where my business is. Um, and so just even learning more about like how you craft your messaging, how you can find leads and different types of leads. I felt like I learned a lot in S4P, and I was like, I'm still learning really cool things in S4P. And so that was just a big win for me, and having access to all of those different things.
That's amazing. And it's been such an amazing journey also to watch your transformation, right? Watch you build more of that confidence in your business, finding the language that works for you, landing some pretty amazing large contracts. So I know you've had a lot of different consulting contracts throughout your time. So it's just been amazing to see that transformation. So thank you for speaking to that. And lastly, what's next for you, right? What's on the horizon? What are some ways that folks can support you or connect with your business?
Yes, yes. So the at that you see on my screen, at Leading in the Moment, is my YouTube channel. So you can follow me there. Also on LinkedIn, I am Geronda Wallach on LinkedIn. Been trying to change it so it matches my name, but so you can find me on LinkedIn. My website is www.gerondaws.com, where you can find out more of my talks and all the things. And what's next for me is a couple of things. As you mentioned, I'm doing a talk so I'm located in Maine, and there's a beautiful area in Maine that's like Booth Bay. It is gorgeous, and I get to go in person and give a keynote and spend time there, which is something that I don't think I would have had the opportunity to do if I hadn't joined S4P. And so that's coming up for me. I'm also going to be promoting, and some of you are going to get access for free as well, a belonging audit. And it's specifically whether you are an individual contributor on a team, or if you're a people manager, or if you're a leader, you take this audit and it actually gives you the true findings in terms of how well people feel connected to the company, to each other, do they feel like they belong? And that is a good baseline for folks to start off with, to say, oh, okay, well, maybe your manager feels like everybody belongs, but then there's a disconnect from how employees feel. And so here's the impact of that. Here's also the impact of you taking action to build more of those inclusive teams. And then I would also say that soon I am going to be promoting a coaching program, because I'm also a coach. And it's specifically for queer and neurodiverse adults. And really the focus is on, a lot of times we are told that we're too much, we're not enough, we're not understood. And so this is really bringing us back to home and accepting ourselves based on our values, and putting ourselves into those communities where we feel supported. So I joke with people and I say, I'm a Black lesbian woman with ADHD. So a lot of that experience is what brought me to build this coaching program. And so I'll be sharing that out probably in the next month or so.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Geronda, one, for sharing your wisdom with us, but also just for being all that you are. So thank you so much for what you've shared with me during this time. Again, give some love for Geronda in the comments section. We're going to continue to move forward, and now we're going to bring up Evolve for another announcement, and then we're going to go into our closing speaker with Dion.
Y'all, this afternoon has been so powerful. I just absolutely love you, Geronda, the work that you continue to do to support folks and your company. One cool thing I got to do, y'all, last year was I got to actually go speak at Geronda's day job and do a talk, which was really fun. And that just shows the power of relationships that we're building in speaking for profit and all the things that come from it, right? And I just want you all to know that are watching this, thank you so much for using your most valuable resource with us, which is your time and being here. I really appreciate it. I know that the speakers here appreciate it. And yes, they are booked and busy, but they're also open for opportunity. So if you see a speaker here today and you're like, you know what, I need to bring them to my actual space right now, I want you to take advantage of them and reach out to them and have a conversation, get on a discovery call and see if it aligns. If you're watching on YouTube, I would love for you to like and subscribe. Please do. We continue to do YouTube videos on a weekly basis. It's usually myself, or I'm interviewing some amazing expert about public speaking and how to monetize what you know as an expert. So please like, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, this will be a great time to share it with someone else. Maybe there's someone else in the world and you're like, they need to hear this message. They need to bring them in for their retreat, whoever it may be. We would love for you to also share the channel as well. So I mentioned at the beginning when I was doing my other commercial that we have the Academy cohort coming up, right? And that's going to be coming up this summer. But I know for some of you, the Academy is not it yet. Some of you are just getting started. You need to put together a signature talk. You're trying to figure out who you would even speak to. You're trying to figure out for yourself if speaking is even the thing, right? So I want you to know that we have something for the beginners too, for the newbies. We have the Profitable Speaker Circle. It's an amazing community. It's actually free to join. And in that space, we have our signature foundational training where we teach you how to put together your signature talk. We also put in that space daily speaking opportunities for you if you're a paid member, if you're a premium member, so that you can start to do outreach. And we also do some amazing workshops. So if you go over to www.school.com/wealthy speaker, you can check out the Profitable Speaker Circle. We would love to welcome you into the community. Like I said, this is a free space. For me, I always want to be a resource and to be as accessible as possible. So this is the space where you can start to build your business. If you feel like, you know what, the Academy seems like they're the real deal. They are the real deal. But while you're preparing for the Academy, you can be a part of the circle. So please join us. I'll be admitting some folks later on today. And if you have any questions about that, you could just reach out to me. One more thing before we bring up our last speaker, I just want to highlight Speaking for Profit alum, just to show you all a little bit of what it looks like years after the program. So we had an amazing speaker who joined us a few years ago. Her name is Dr. Christine Coleman. And she was just so amazing to work with. She's still one of my favorite people in the world. And recently she got an award from the Golden State Valkyries for the incredible work that she's doing. It's called the Power Forward Award. And she has a company called Soul Sisters. It's actually an organization in the Bay Area that supports women of color and women in general who are doing amazing work within the community. They do everything from clothing drives to meeting up for brunch to supporting each other's businesses. So I just wanted to highlight her so you all can see some of the things that other Speaking for Profit University students are doing, but also just to say congratulations, Dr. Christine Coleman. It's been amazing to see your growth since you went through the cohort, and just amazing to connect with you. So if y'all want to connect with her on LinkedIn, please do. But I just wanted to bring her into the space because it's just been honestly amazing to work with her. She is a clinical therapist. She does so much healing work, and she supports her community like no other. So to see her being acknowledged on that stage, it was just a big moment for me, especially going on LinkedIn and seeing that. So give it up for Dr. Christine Coleman. I hope that she sees this video and gets that acknowledgement. So as we're wrapping up today, y'all, I hope that you've had an amazing time. I'm about to bring up our last speaker of the day, which this speaker is just an amazing person in general. but continues to do amazing work around mental health, around being trauma informed, around supporting community, around social justice. And in the cohort has consistently showed up and showed out and been a resource to so many folks. So I want to bring up Dion Watts Williams. Please come up to the stage. We'd love to see you in the space. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Evolve. Great to be here.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear your speech, and we'll do the interview afterwards. Go for it.
Great. How many of you have ever looked at your organization's talent pipeline and noticed a strange, frustrating pattern? You recruit top tier female talent, and when you look at the mid-level management tiers, they're packed with brilliant, highly capable women doing exceptional work. But then you look at the senior leadership tier, the executive suite, or even the boardroom, and suddenly that pipeline thins out. If you've seen this happen in your own company, drop a yes. Drop a yes in the comments. I know we're on YouTube today. The talent is there, right? You see the data, the performance reviews, and the long hours they put in. But for some reason, when it comes time for high-level advancement, those voices seem to carry less weight. Maybe you sat in talent calibration meetings where a woman's names come up for a promotion and someone says, yeah, like she does a great job, but I don't know if she has that executive presence yet. Or maybe they've said she just hasn't shown that she wants the promotion. I'm just not seeing her show up. You might wonder why I'm so passionate about fixing this, guys. And it's because I've been that woman. See, years ago, I was at what I thought was the absolute height of my corporate career. I had the 6-figure role, the good job with benefits, plush corner office. I had an assistant. I was hitting my targets and following every rule in the corporate playbook. And then when I was 5 months pregnant, I was suddenly laid off. I couldn't go back to my office to get my things. My assistant at the time actually met me at my car with my belongings in a cardboard box. In an instant, my security and my confidence vaporized. I panicked. And honestly, there were days, guys, I sat in the dark and questioned everything about my worth and my capabilities. Now, for a long time, I blamed my supervisor. Her gaslighting, microaggressions, and impossible expectations actually literally gave me a stress-induced ulcer. But with the benefit of time, perspective, and a little prayer, I realized something. She was the bad guy, hands down, right? But she was actually a symptom of an organization that didn't know how to position its talent. That intense pressure from her forced me to realize that I'd actually been hiding behind my corporate title. The friction from that experience forced me to build my own resilience, to own my authentic voice, and quite frankly, to embrace my dopeness. In hindsight, I should track her down and send her a thank you note. But here's the takeaway for everyone overseeing talent today. Don't let a broken pipeline be the reason your top talent has to leave your organization to discover their worth. My old company didn't just lose an employee, they lost a marketing and communications baddie, a powerhouse, because they didn't have the internal frameworks to pull my visibility forward. Decades of coaching, thousands of invisible experts, I like to call it, has taught me that your organization most likely isn't lacking talent or capability, but what it does have is a huge visibility gap. Organizations invest heavily in teaching women how to do the work. That's how our society is set up. But rarely are we equipped with the frameworks to articulate the strategic business value that we bring to the table. We train for execution, but leaving positioning to chance. And as a result, your highest performing assets remain your best kept secrets. We have to stop hoping and wishing that our talent's work is somehow going to magically speak for itself, and intentionally equip them to tell their story of impact. Solving this is an urgent financial and cultural priority for your company right now. Why is that? Because every single day that a high-performing woman's brilliance lives under the radar is a day your organization loses or risks losing her to a competitor who will see her. And so this leaky pipeline can cost companies millions of dollars annually in recruitment and onboarding costs, not to mention lost institutional knowledge. When your top women feel invisible, they don't just stay quiet, they leave. Closing this gap requires 3 operational shifts that I build into my corporate programs. First, we have to teach leaders to clarify their strategic value. Train our women leaders to stop giving generic project updates and start speaking the language of business metrics. They need to confidently identify how their work specifically impacts your bottom line, risk mitigation, or operational efficiency. Number 2, equip them to actually craft and own their narrative. We have to give women concise, reproducible frameworks to translate daily wins into a high-level executive summary, so that the next time senior leadership asks what they're working on, they're focusing on impact rather than a punch list, a laundry list of tasks. Thirdly, leveraging visibility channels intentionally. We must show them how to embrace and show up with thought leadership, both internally in cross-functional meetings and externally on platforms like LinkedIn, so they can align their digital and their physical presence with your corporate objectives and ultimately become your biggest, most vocal brand ambassadors. Here's a simple action step that you can take immediately. Identify that one quiet rock star on your team. And in your next one-to-one, ask her, what is one high impact win that you delivered this month that the wider leadership team needs to know about? Help her bridge that gap. Listen, high performing women shouldn't have to experience crisis in order to step into their authority. And why should they have to look outside of your walls to find validation for their expertise? As leaders of talent and culture, you have the operational power to actually change the narrative. Will you continue to let your top talent remain your best kept secrets? Or will you invest in the visibility that actually drives retention, innovation, and growth for your organization? Every day they stay in the shadows is a direct hit to your company's pipeline, brand, and bottom line. Thank you.
Give it up for Dion. Powerful talk. Thank you so much. What
Thank
really
you.
I resonate with is, and there's so many folks in the chat. Let me bring a couple of things in the chat. It's wild how many of us have experienced a very similar situation at work, right?
Mhm.
Where we're wired in these particular ways, and they really end up crippling us as leaders, right? And I'm muting you because there's a little bit of like noise, but we can come back and forth. But it puts us in a place where we're crippled. And I think what you're building out, Dion, is a space where people can really feel empowered in themselves, but also managers and leaders can understand what this actual feeling and impact is and how they can construct some things in a way as well. So your talk was just so powerful. But I would love to hear from you. Like, how did you get started speaking? Take us a little bit on that journey.
Yeah, speaking is the thing that I've been avoiding all my life until recent years, maybe 6 years ago. As a kid, I, like most kids, hated public speaking. I actually had to go to speech therapy for a little bit. And I was drawn specifically to writing. And in my corporate life, I'm in marketing and communication. So the expectation is you must be a good speaker. And I started consulting actually almost 20 years ago. So just writing resumes, optimizing LinkedIn profiles, like really just writing assets for folks. And then I noticed that my clients who were really credentialed, like there was something deeper there. So I moved or expanded my business into doing coaching. My coach about 6 years ago, she had us do a 30-day live stream challenge, at least 5 minutes every day for 30 days, unscripted, just getting us in the habit of talking and being on some sort of public stage. And eventually, I started hosting my own personal branding workshops and LinkedIn workshops and things of that nature. So that really was at the height of COVID. And from that, I started getting requests to do workshops virtually. So yeah, that was almost 6 years ago. And I realized that after a few experiences, like, oh, I actually like teaching and training and speaking. So definitely a full circle moment. And it's been a really good muscle for me to exercise.
I love that. I love that. So for you, the powerhouse, I would say, in your business is branding, communications, of course, but you do it from a social justice lens, right, as well, which is super powerful. So you joined the cohort, right, which was amazing. But why did you make that decision at this time to join it?
Yeah, the speaking engagements I've had over the past few years were just secondary to the coaching and consulting. So I really wanted to like formalize my outreach and my systems, give my fees some sort of structure. Like I was just kind of randomly, doing things off the seat of my pants. And I also realized, like, yeah, in addition to being more strategic, I thrive in communities. So that was something that was really appealing here. And I wanted to be able to target um, the decision makers, right? The people who are facilitating and holding these spaces for women more strategically and more intentionally.
Well, great work. It's been really cool to have you in the community and be a part of this space. And I know you've made some connections that are right going to be lifelong and continue to help you grow. When you think about the transformation, like where you started and where you are now, what are some things that you learned or some wins that you want to share that came from Speaking for Profit?
Yeah, the biggest win, and I think some people have mentioned this, was the CRM, was being able, I am big on delegating and automating. So to be able to have that formal structure for outreach and making sure that I'm, just being more intentional and having a formal system for outreach, that's been really, really beneficial. And you've been, Evolve, really helpful in helping me to shift my messaging from talking to the individuals who I would work with as a coach and consultant to like, well, no, Dion, organizationally, this is how you would shift your messaging just a little bit. So same baseline messaging, but making it really speak to the people I needed to speak to. So that second set of eyes, that fresh perspective has been really, just really powerful.
Yeah, you're really what I would call like a jack of so many trades. And I think what I've seen in your work is there's so many powerful places and it was feeling overwhelming, I think, for you. So to be able to like help you with that clarity, it means so much because I know that there are people who need your medicine, Dion, that are going to be able to find it now because they don't have to look through all of the clutter. And that's just so promising and rewarding for me because the work that you're going to be able to do with women, particularly Black women, it's just really going to be life changing. So thank you so much for being a part of the cohort and continue to do this labor of love that you do. So tell folks like what's next for you, what do you have going on, and how can they continue to support your work?
Yeah, I, of course, in addition to coaching and consulting, am open to having conversations with leaders who are in talent development, training and development, if you're leading an ERG or even an organization that really supports and invests in women, I'm open to those conversations. I'm also, and I haven't done this in a couple years, looking at hosting my own or reviving my own in-person experience. It was called Brunching and Branding, where we would do, catered brunch. I like a little sippy sip, so like wine and just talking all things like personal branding and getting a space for women to be just really open and vulnerable and get the support that they need for their personal brands. So that's a platform I'm looking to, or in-person experience I'm looking to have again really, really soon. But people can get in touch with me at workwithdion.com. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You guys saw the QR code. So I'm open to feedback if you want to give me some feedback, and I have a nice personal branding download, a little freebie for those who give me that feedback.
Yes, y'all. So I brought the QR code back up. If you would like to, please give Dion some feedback. This would be great. You'll get that personal branding kit as a gift. And if you enjoyed the talk, reach out to Dion to have a conversation. I know that she's definitely open to having conversations about supporting individuals, but also about supporting organizations when it comes to leadership and branding, and particularly supporting women, Black women, women of color. So Dion, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your signature talk. And like I said, continue to do this labor of love with the world. I'm just so excited to see what's next for you. And I love a good brunch and sippy sip and branding. So when you bring that to your local city, let me know. I would love to come out and support and be there as well, because we could always get better at our branding and our business.
Absolutely. You got an invite. You got a front row ticket. Don't you worry about it. I got you.
All right. I love a little VIP. I love it. Thank you so much, Dion, for coming through. All right, y'all. We are pretty much almost like we're at the end, to be honest with y'all. Like, this has been amazing. I want to congratulate every speaker in Speaking for Profit Academy, our spring cohort 2026, for showing up for the last 12 weeks and investing in themselves, right? Taking the time to invest in your brand and your business, building out structure. So many of the talks that we heard about today were about being better leaders. And I still believe to this day, leadership starts with you. If you're able to give to yourself, you'll be able to give to others. So if you enjoyed the speaker today, please check out their work, reach out to them. They are around, and they will continue to be around, and will continue to support their brands. I've seen some really great things coming up in the comments, so I'll share a couple of those things. Witness the transformation, a model that works. Yes. And, y'all, we have done so much work in Speaking for Profit University to continue to make sure that this program is not only successful, but that folks actually are able to build community. Being a speaker can be a very isolating thing. Being a business owner can be very isolating. So this community is a space where we continue to welcome people who want to be in community with us, who are diverse, who are credible, who are creating impact. And I'm just so excited to continue to build it. So I'm Evolve Benton, the Speaking for Profit strategist. You just witnessed the spring cohort graduation. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, subscribe, share it with other people. And I will see you all in the near and dear future. All right, y'all. Peace.